Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I just read Lord of the Night, and by Nostromo's Adamantine Crust. This is truly a glorious novel. The novel, written by Simon Spurrier, details the epic clash between Inquisitor Mita Ashin and Talon Master Zau Sahal of the 8th Legion. For those unfamiliar with Sahal, he was originally meant to be Conrad Cur's successor after his death. In the old lore, Conrad used to wear a magical crown called the Corona Nox. Before he committed suicide by imperial assassination, he declared Sahal would inherit this crown and told Sahal he should use the Legion to take revenge upon the Imperium that betrayed him. Now again, this is old lore, and a lot of it is retconned nowadays, but this is the lore that the novel is built upon. Anyways, after having been kept in the warp for the past 10,000 years by the Eldari, Sahal's ship has suddenly crashed on an Imperial planet. Here, a group of Hivegangers have infiltrated the ship and stolen his Corona Nox. Sahal is understandably very upset about this and goes on a quest to retake the crown, by any means necessary. This leads him on a long and challenging quest throughout the Hive, where not just his abilities but also his conviction is challenged on all fronts. Meanwhile, on the other side of the alignment chart, we follow Mita Ashin, a young and psychically gifted interrogator of the Ordo Xenos. Mita is rather ambitious and has been trying to earn the favor of her new master. But upon arriving on Equixis, things soon get complicated. She quickly learns of the absolute devastation Sahal has left in his wake, and when her master refuses to look into the issue, she is forced to, unconventional, say heretical, means to try and stop the Night Lord's rampage. If you want to know whether Sahal can get his crown back, if Mita can stop Equixis from falling, and what will be left of their morals at the end of it, then you'll have to follow the link down below and read this book for yourself. Now, first of all, I have to disclaim again that this is a bit of an outdated novel, a relic from the past, so to speak. In many ways, Simon Spurrier, who is currently known for his work on characters such as Judge Dredd, Ghost Rider, The Punisher, and Nightcrawler, brought the modern-day Night Lords to life. He later left the Black Library on bad terms, and ADB was put in charge of reimagining the Night Lords in his omnibus as well as in his work for the Horus Heresy, both of which are heavily influenced by the concepts that were fleshed out in this novel. I personally rather like this trip into the past, to see where the 8 got its 40k portrayal from, but if you only want to read books that are completely canon, or if you want the characters to be expanded upon further in a sequel, well, then this is not a book for you. That being said, if you are okay with the aforementioned, then you are in for a treat, cause this novel really is something special. One of the first things I noticed, which I greatly enjoyed, was how much of a monster Sahal is in this novel. Traitor protagonists often get a bit toned down in order to make them more relatable, but Sahal really is a deranged beast. To give you an idea, Sahal announces his arrival by causing a nuclear meltdown in the middle of the Hive that straight out obliterates the territory of the gangsters who stole his crown. For those who read the Night Lord's Omnibus, he has as much tics as Yuzaz, as much combat prowess as Zarl, and Talos seems to have taken many pages out of his book when it comes to fucked up tactics. Although, I don't think that he is just a monster, however. The Night Lords have always been a very interesting legion from an ethical perspective. Their ideas may be warped, and they may be insane, but still they do often possess a strong conviction for justice, and this book does an excellent job at portraying this. Sahal is a very interesting character that gets more and more depth as the novel goes on. We learn a lot about why he does what he does, and he does again gain some redeemable qualities as he develops as a character. The other protagonist, Mita, similarly has a lot of depth to her. Especially in the old lore, witches or psychers were hated with a passion throughout the Imperium. Mita has thus spent all her life fighting for an empire that detests her, and throughout the novel gets to see more and more of the dark side of the Imperium. Sahal and Mita also have a very cool mirror dynamic. Mita becomes more and more ruthless as the novel goes on, partially because of her growing hatred of the Imperium, but more so because of her growing desperation to stop the Night Lord. Sahal, meanwhile, becomes more and more caring in a way, as he tries to stick to and enforce the old ideals of the Legion. I really enjoyed this aspect, and their eventual showdown was superb. The plot itself was really strong as well. There are twists and turns at every corner, making it so that you are always left in the dark as to what will happen next. Subtle hints and mysteries are spread all throughout the novel, and only at the end will all the pieces fall together in a very well written conclusion. The character arcs tie into this story very well, and the world building feels expansive, yet never too focused on exposition. Altogether, just a very well written story. Talking about the world building, there are 3 particular highlights. First of all, there's of course the 8th Legion, Conrad, and their beliefs. This novel sets out a very pure vision that the original Legion stuck to, of sacrificing the few to save the many, of defeating the monster by becoming even scarier, and of creating an ideal universe where they would be the only thing still stalking in the dark. Sahal believes in this with great conviction, and it was very interesting to read his thoughts about the Night Lord's Legion. Another highlight is the grimdark and vile portrayal of the Imperium. In a lot of modern books, the Imperium is either portrayed as much less horrendous or portrayed as the very obvious bad guy. See for an example the portrayal of Ultramar as an example of the former, and books such as The Twice Dead King or Day of Ascension as examples of the latter. Here instead the book focuses on more subtle dark sides, such as the ignorance, bigotry and zeal of its inhabitants. The Imperium is pretty fucked up, and this novel does a great job at exploring this without straying into the extremities of servitor concentration camps or extermination campaigns. Thirdly, I just gotta say that I love the various gangs and factions that Spurrier created for this hive. There are frogmen, there are shadow zealots, there are big boys and more. The Hive of Equixus is a very cool setting with a lot of interesting details. The final thing I want to praise about this is the writing style. Spurrier has a word choice that is very different from most Black Library writers, which was rather refreshing. His descriptive writing, especially when it came to combat or magical scenes, was excellent. It is not as deeply complex as Fiyarvari's work, but it has a significantly richer word choice than most Black Library novels. He also does a good job of managing between combat, descriptive and dialogue scenes, and successfully ties some dark humor in between without taking away the gravity of the situations. So altogether, this novel gets 5 out of 5 Nightclad Raptors. Lord of Night is an excellent Night Lord novel that in my opinion sometimes even outclasses the ADB Omnibus. No punches are pulled when it comes to portraying horrific parts of the setting, and the Night Lord's portrayal is probably the best I've read so far. The characters and their arcs are great, the plot is intriguing, and the book is a very cool mirror dynamic between the 2 protagonists. This is an absolute must-read for any fan of the 8th Legion, and I actually would recommend it for any 40k fan that is willing to read some of the older stuff. Lord of the Night really is just a forgotten gem that is criminally underrated, and I really can't recommend it enough. But for now, that's all I got for you today. If you like the content, please consider subscribing or joining us on Patreon. Have a nice evening, and don't forget your nightly prayers to Nagash.